I'm Norman Locke, and I will read from Eden's Clock, a finalist for the 2025 Big Other Reader's Choice Award. Many thanks to you, John Madera, and for your gift to contemporary literature, Big Other. The novel is set in many places in the continental United States from November 1905 through April the 17th, 1906. Beneath the progression of events and the many people named and unnamed that constitute Eden's Clock is the mythology of American progress. The nation's belief in its own God-given right to satisfy its territorial ambition, its manifest destiny, is America's foundational myth, one which absolves it of every sin against the land and every species crushed by the juggernaut. Chromolith copies of this 1872 painting by John Gast entitled American Progress could be seen everywhere in post-Civil War America, in saloons and barber shops, schoolrooms and kitchens, and the aggrandizing spirit it celebrates is the seal of the Almighty's approval of American expansionism. Eden's Clock is told by Frederick Heigold, a mute clockmaker from Dobbs Ferry, New York, whose vocal cords were nicked by Confederate shrapnel during the Battle of Gettysburg. Following the death of his wife, he accepts a commission to travel to San Francisco to repair the monumental clock atop the Union Depot and Ferry House, whose accuracy was, in fact, undermined by winds of a certain speed and from a certain quarter. What ought to have been a straightforward six-day train trip from New York City to Oakland becomes a 6-month ordeal, an Anabasis into the American interior and character by way of the New York City slums, the city's Tombs prison, and shipwreck on one of the Gullah Geechee Sea Islands. During his journey, he encounters every reprehensible American type: apologists for capitalist and religious extremes, salesmen, conmen, swindlers, big talkers, profiteers, opportunist real estate agents, delusional prospectors, the whole oily machinery of annexation. At the end of Heigold's epical journey, he finds himself sitting at a table next to a group of San Francisco newspapermen, among them the adventurer and novelist Jack London, who earlier in the evening interviewed Enrico Caruso after the tenor's performance at the San Francisco Opera House, hours before San Francisco and its clocks are destroyed by earthquake and fire, and time is held in suspension as though to smite America for its presumption. Edith, mentioned in the following excerpt, is Heigold's seatmate on the train from Prairie City, Iowa to Oakland. Mr. Wallace, the San Franciscan in charge of public works, who invited Heigold to fix the great clock on the Embarcadero. The angel in Heigold's dream on the Nevada desert is one of the two left to guard Eden's gate after the expulsion of Adam and Eve from paradise, whose earthly representation has always been Whitman's idea of California. Heigold's dream of the second angel high above San Francisco Bay portends the ultimate destruction of American imperialism. From chapter 15, I felt myself rushing headlong toward the end of the American continent. Nothing could be seen through the car window except darkness, richly veined with violet light, the same quality of light that Lucius Clay had projected into the room where Lillian's coffin lay waiting for the processes of eternity to commence in earnest. The Illuminator, a German invention intended to impress mourners with an experience of the afterlife, had been praised in the Sunny Side, a magazine for undertakers which had published Clay's professional opinion on the optimum concentration of formaldehyde in embalming. I'm reminded of a dream I had at Goldfield, a railway stop on the southwestern edge of the Nevada desert. It shook me, Jack, almost enough to make me get off the train and take the next one headed east. But I could no more shake off the idea of San Francisco than a dog can a burr. I yearned to be, as Walt Whitman rhapsodized, facing west from California's shore, inquiring, tireless, seeking what is yet unfound. My head resting against the window, I fell into the deepest sleep where nightmares are stabled. The train is blocked by one of the pair of cherubim who stand guard at Eden's western gate, locked against us ever since the first eviction. Dazzling in the rising sun, the cherub who looms above us is no pink Cupid on a valentine, but a colossus armored in bronze, bearing the flaming sword which turned every way. He bestrides the railway tracks. I walk toward him, mesmerized by the brazen light shining on his breastplate. Finding my voice, I step toward him, thinking that to address this fallen piece of firmament is the reason the power of speech has been restored to me. "Why are you blocking the way?" I shout as one does to giants in order to be heard. Either my voice is too weak to reach his ears, or he has not troubled to learn a modern language. In his appearance he resembles the picture in my mind of a Hittite king. A second vast shadow sweeps across the desert and folds like a shroud over the train. It belongs to the gold-haired woman in the allegory of American progress. Unspooling telegraph wires, she strides westward through the upholding air. A caboodle of swindlers and profiteers, cattlemen and speculators, evangelists selling Jesus and peddlers selling pots, follows her. Bison and aborigines take flight before that awful juggernaut of commerce, sanctimony, and greed. She lays aside the giant spool that floats in the clear blue sky. Like a raptor bird, she falls upon the angel, blowing out the flame of his sword and tearing at his Semite wings. They grapple on the desert floor. The angel's wings beat the sand dunes flat with so much heat and force they turn to glass. Edith, the locomotive engineer, and I stand transfixed by the battle royal, bearing witness to a ferocity not seen on earth since the sack of Rome, or in our own time, the Trail of Tears. On the morning of the second day, the angel expires, and the heavens fall silent. "It is finished," says the engineer, taking off his hat. "Yes," says Edith solemnly. The colossus of the American West shakes her golden tresses into place, adjusts the star of empire on her brow and the folds of her attic gown, and takes up the spool of telegraph wire as easily as a woman does a bobbin of thread. And lo, in the west, Eden's gate swings open on its rusted hinge, and there before us lies the valley of the Yosemite. And there before us lies the valley of Yosemite, luminous in full sunlight. "The way is clear," declares the engineer, remembering the day, his duty to the railway, and to us. "True enough," I say. "Oh dear," moans Edith, doubtless thinking of Caruso. Once more the train is traveling west in the wake of the blonde angel of American progress, who stepped from John Gast's painting by that name to aid in our manifest destiny, the small one of Edith's and my making. Through the train window I see the immense carcass of one of God's angels burning on the desert sand. I hear a sound such as 1,000 exploding boilers would make. I shout for no reason other than to let out the terror mounting inside me, as pressure in a boiler is eased by a blast of a steam whistle. Is this why I was given back my voice, I ask myself, to shout in terror at the end of the world? Someone was roughly shaking me awake. "Oakland," said the conductor. "Fred, we're here," said Edith. The weary passengers were gathering their belongings. Night had fallen. Yosemite was behind me, engulfed in darkness. Last stop, Oakland. At Oakland we came to the end of the line. Edith and I left the train and caught a 9 o'clock night boat across the bay to San Francisco. The turret clock, towering above the Union Depot and Ferry House, loomed in the yellow fog crawling on the Embarcadero. I would visit Herbert Wallace in the morning and tell him that I had washed my hands of time and its instruments. The street was empty except for a removals van parked in front of a 2-story house. Was it there for a new beginning or an eviction? I turned back on Market Street and walked to the Palace Hotel. Although I doubted that, after all these months on the way from Dobbs Ferry, the reservation Mr. Wallace had made for me would be honored, I stopped at the front desk. As expected, there was none, nor was there a room to be had within my means, which were by now on the lean side of naught. "Mr. Heigold, it appears that the announcement of your retirement was premature," I told myself. Let's hope that Mr. Herbert Wallace has a clock deserving of your extraordinary talent. Otherwise, you'll be hanging by your fingertips to the slippery edge of the pit, also known as a 15-cent flop in San Francisco's Tenderloin, followed by a breakfast of thin coffee and stale sinkers. Not entirely skinned, however, you have sufficient capital for a modest tuck-in at the Palace Hotel Bar. Palace Hotel Bar, April the 17th, 1906, midnight in San Francisco. You lean back in your chair and stuff your large hands into your coat pockets. You size up each of your three confederates in the newspaper racket with eyes that, unlike theirs, have surveyed vast distances and alien worlds. You've seen the China Sea and the 2,000-mile-long Yukon River. You have walked beside the Yalu and the Bay of Yokohama. You have gazed on Manchuria, Russia, and Pyongyang. Your eyes are blue and penetrating, and at this moment a little sad. You're one of the most handsome young men I've ever seen, Jack, and I wonder if, in the midst of your exuberant embrace of life, with the vitality of the blonde beast, you too are slowly dying. No, not this man. I tell myself death would never dare to stop for Jack London, who, at this moment in his history, is lighting an imperial cigarette. I notice that your teeth are bad. You put your forearms on the table and finish the story of your conversion. Just as I had been an individualist without knowing, and I was now a socialist without knowing, withal an unscientific one. I had been reborn, but not renamed, and I was running around to find out what manner of thing I was. It's going on midnight, and time you boys were crawling into your holes, grumbles the weary barman, gathering up bottles from the table. They clank in his beefy red hands like bells that have lost their tongues. Boys, Caruso's asleep upstairs, says the cartoonist, who, having downed one too many Boilermakers, has defiled the Palace Hotel linen with an illustration of Mother Jones and the Italian tenor in the buff. What say we treat him to a chivalry? He might have been a schoolboy proposing to put a garter snake in the teacher's desk drawer, or a soused mule skinner contemplating the ribbons on a fancy woman's drawers. Maybe he'll sing us to sleep if we've promised not to stir. Taking a cigar from his coat pocket, the caricaturist suggests, "Light up, gents. We'll smoke the fella out." "Oh, let the Dago sleep," says the barman peevishly. "You loafers be on your way." You and your companions pay and leave the tap room. I do the same and step outside in time to see you shout goodbye to them. I follow you down the street toward the water. I keep well back. You are walking listlessly, your head bowed. It's late. No doubt you've had a long day, and you did put away a lot of beer. I wait for you to turn into one of the hotels on Market Street, but you walk on toward the Embarcadero. I think of things I'd ask you if only I could speak. Here you are, Fred Heigold, at the end of the continent, walking 20 yards behind a man who has seen life up close and understands it, at least well enough to write stories that are wise in the ways of men and women who are down to the last matchstick. Damn your rotten luck, Fred. Once I thought to have banished it all else that would challenge a universe of absolutes sacred to the clockmaker. The Union Depot tower clock hangs like an apparition above the inky blackness of San Francisco Bay. I wonder if Herbert Wallace has found another clocksmith to fix it. You stop at the edge of the pier and look at the bay. I stop as well. I'm not beside you. I keep a respectful distance. As the minutes slowly pass, each one a stone, I ask myself, what do you hope to gain? Heigold, standing in the fog and feeling foolish. Suddenly he turned to me and asked, have you been following the Princeton Tigers this season? Or do you favor the Yale team for the championship? I'd bet my Uncle Sprat's back teeth that it comes down to Bill Roper's boys. I make a noise in my throat that a man might make dancing beneath the gibbet. You grunt, kick an iron cleat screwed to the pier, and walk back the way you came. Sleep overwhelms me, sudden and irresistible, as if a narcotic has precipitated from the fog. I stretch out on a bench beneath the depot's sheltering eaves and tumble into a dream. I am dreaming of a sea, still and lifeless. I've come from far away to be here, this place at the end of the continent. High above me an angel is floating. His golden hair is dull in the leaden sky. He holds a flaming sword, and I'm afraid. I've been sent to mend the clock, I tell him, unfolding the telegram from Mr. Wallace. Time is broken, he says. His voice is curious, a mix of admonition and regret. It is better left so. I can fix it, I say softly, insinuating with the air of a seducer. He shakes his head, and his long hair moves from side to side, too slowly, I think, to be real. Time is the destroyer of worlds, he replies gloomily. The remark offends me. Time crept into the garden through the unlatched gate and unpacked death, he says. I notice a drummer's case like the one that belonged to McGlynn lying open on the beach. As my eyes begin to water, the case grows larger. Squatting over it, I see hundreds of 38 long Colt revolvers, which the U.S. Army used to subdue the Cubans and the Filipinos. I know nothing of this, I tell him, kicking the case defiantly. I'm only a man who fixes clocks. Here, too, death has been ample, he replies, scratching underneath one of his wings. I smile to myself to think that he may have fleas, this being who appears so lofty. A long shadow passes overhead, further darkening the gray sky. Look, he commands. I look at the sky and see there a giant thumbprint made by a million whirling passenger pigeons. I remember how lovely they were to watch, pecking at gravel spread along the ferry slip, pink-breasted, their thrusting necks blazed with vermilion. In his journal, Cotton Mather wrote of having seen a flight of them a mile wide, taking several hours to pass high above Salem, says the Archangel. I'm not surprised that he should know so arcane a fact. Soon they will exist nowhere but in memory, I say, wondering if Harley is still on the run. Yes, it will be so, the angel replies matter-of-factly. His teeth are like 2 rows of tombstones. I watch as the whirl unwinds and forms a black river of birds. They are beginning to flow across the aerial empire when men and boys appear on the beach and fire rifles and shotguns into the moil. I see the sky is empty of birds and the sand is covered with their tiny carcasses. I begin to shout into a birdless silence.